being on a show like Shark Tank gives you instantaneous credibility. You're already connected because of Shark Tank. And it also provides an amazing group of friends. For example, I'm on a Facebook group with about 800 other companies. If I have an obstacle I'm facing in my business, I could put the word out, hey, guys, I need help. Chances are someone has been through that and can provide me with some knowledge, and vice versa. So it's the instant credibility.
Welcome to HarmonyTALK, a place for dreamers and doers. We explore how passion becomes purpose and how ordinary beginnings grow into extraordinary paths. Our guest today is Kim Meckwood. That's who you just heard. She is the inventor and founder of Click and Carry, a smart, ergonomic handle that helps people carry multiple bags at once, comfortably and efficiently. Kim has landed deals with massive retailers like Lowe's and Tractor Supply. She has been featured on Good Morning America, The Today Show, QVC, Live with Mark and Kelly, and Shark Tank, where she holds an interesting record. More on that coming up. Kim is also a breast cancer survivor. Her story is proof that resilience, creativity, and a little bit of hustle can turn life's challenges into something truly impactful. HarmonyTALK is sponsored by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business, and a champion for people who dream big and follow through. I'm your host, Lisa Champeau. Kim joins us from one of her two homes, this one on the East Coast. Welcome, Kim. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. I really appreciate the invitation.
Now, you grew up in Pennsylvania, I think in the Scranton area. When you were a little girl, what did you dream of being? Was it an inventor?
No, but I was always very creative. I thought I was MacGyver. I don't know if you remember that show, I think from the 80s. But I always liked to work with gadgets. I loved playing with Legos and Lincoln Logs. My first job was painting rocks and selling them door to door. I think I was about 5. With my favorite neighbor, AJ, he and I caught a cardinal using the old technique from the cartoons where one would put a milk crate with a stick and we pulled the stick down once the bird hopped in after eating up the breadcrumbs. So I've always been really creative and into making things. And my first real invention was when I was 15, I invented a waterbed raft. And basically, it would be the equivalent of a child's pool, but rectangular in shape. So it would have those 3 balloon inflates on each side, but the bottom would be flat. So you would feel the coldness from the water because it would just be that flat, thick plastic. And then it would be attached to, let's say, ropes that connected to the equivalent of a Clorox bottle filled with sand. So you can knot it according to the depth of the pool and pivot it toward the sun to get a perfect tan. And I begged my mother for a patent. And at the time it was $800. It was advertised on TV and she wouldn't go for it. She was not being convinced. Sure enough, 5 years later, we were at a pool store and my invention was out there in the market. So this time around, I decided I was just going for it, and I did. So I have 2 utility patents on Click and Carry and many other IP protections.
Well, take us through it. Okay, you've invented something, and this time you're going to own it. What were the next steps that you took? I mean, you had to manufacture it. You had to decide about sales and marketing.
It has been a journey, let me tell you. So I invented this many, many years ago, and once I finally had the winner, what happened is at the time I was working for Medtronic in deep brain stimulation, and I was at USC, which was one of my favorite implanting accounts. And one of the doctors who is still one of my best friends to this day, her name is Jennifer Huey. She's a movement disorder specialist, which means she concentrates on Parkinson's and essential tremor, dystonia. Anyway, she and I were talking about other things, and I always talk about my invention. And she said to me, will you shut up and stop talking about it and do something about it? So I did. She actually introduced me to her neighbor at the time. Her name was Audrey, and she was going to the Pasadena Design School, which is a school for automation, animation. Most of the famous car designers go to this school. And Audrey was going there for her master's in product design. So I worked with Audrey on a 3D CAD printer and made 9 different prototypes until I found the winner. Once I found the winner, I had a mold made. I knew I could potentially be throwing away money, and I kind of did. I threw away about $5,000, but we made the necessary modifications. Once I had a winner, that's when I filed for a patent, and it took me almost 3 years to get my first utility patent.
Oh my gosh. And you mentioned their money. I mean, how did you fund it?
I did it all grassroots. I had a really great job. Working for Medtronic was perfect for me. but it was expensive. In fact, I wish I knew then what I know now. What I know now is that there's so many available free resources. For example, there's the Patent and Trademark Resource Centers, PTRCs. There are at least 2 or 3 in every state. And these are basically libraries where you can go in and you can find out if a product is already on the market. You could find people to help you to do the renderings for your patent. You could find local legal help, or even students who are going to school and can help you along the process. So there's so many resources available. And then there are colleges, local colleges. For example, the University of Scranton, they have their own SBC center. So they help small businesses. There's so many amazing resources available to us. I actually paid because I knew I would not be able to file a patent properly, but I'm happy I did. And actually, my attorney is a lifelong friend also. So I'm very thankful for him.
Well, you did mention that you had a day job selling medical devices and pharmaceutical supplies, but you eventually quit that job to dedicate your time and commitment to Click and Carry. So, what triggered that moment? At what point did you say, hey, I'm going to make this my life?
So I kind of had no choice because I found out 3 weeks before my episode was airing on Shark Tank. And I knew it would be a big conflict of interest. So I left the job at that point. So I've been doing Click and Carry full time ever since. So it's been about 5 years.
Well, that probably came with, we'll talk about Shark Tank in a second, but that probably came with an awful lot of risks. I mean, goodbye 401k, medical benefits, just a few. But what were some of the risks that you incurred and you just kind of kept plugging?
Boy, so many risks. Just like you said, there's something nice about knowing that you're safe and that you have an income coming in every 2 weeks. Well, that's not the case with your own business. And I pay myself so little. I pay myself about 20% of what I used to make. So I had to really make some lifestyle changes. But this is my passion, and Click and Carry is my baby. So I made the jump. I decided to just go for it. And the truth of the matter is, I can always go back to work, and maybe that would alleviate some headaches. But I just feel like I'm so close that I just need to go for it. For example, I'm starting to get into a lot of retailers. I'm going into Lowe's in quarter 2, potentially Walmart. I just went into Albertsons Safeway, which is also Joel Osco in the Midwest, Acme here on the East Coast, and Vons and Pavilions in Southern and Northern California.
I take it you are your own salesperson. You're the one knocking on the doors and making the phone calls.
I am. And I forgot one. I'm also in Meyer, which is in the Midwest. Yeah, I am the one knocking on the doors, but there's so many great programs available to us entrepreneurs out there. For example, there's a program called Range Me, which is basically a dating service for retail. And then I'm also a member of WeBank, which is the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. So there's basically an army of 21,000 other women who like to help women get ahead in business. So I have some great cheerleaders behind me.
Wow, that's terrific. Now, this show is about people who follow through on their dreams, who don't take no for an answer, and that sounds like you fit the bill. Now, you hold the record for the most number of auditions for Shark Tank, 7, before successfully pitching it on the show. Now, what made you, again, keep plugging?
Because I knew that I didn't have the money to really get the word out. And being on a show like Shark Tank gives you instantaneous credibility. You're already connected because of Shark Tank. And it also provides an amazing group of friends. For example, I'm on a Facebook group with about 800 other companies, and we practice best practices. So, for example, if I have an obstacle I'm facing in my business, I could put the word out, hey, guys, I need help. My test is not going well in Joel Osco. Do you have any suggestions? And chances are someone has been through that and can provide me with some knowledge, and vice versa. So it's the instant credibility. And I had already been on QVC about 13 times at that point. In fact, it's funny because I wasn't as open to Lori as I should have been, because I didn't know at the time that only Lori and Kevin O'Leary's segments could be aired on QVC. So I thought, oh, I don't really need Lori. So I was kind of going after Mark. And it's funny because they edit the show in interesting ways. Lori and Barbara were basically fighting for Click and Carry until the end, but they made it seem like she went out right away, and that wasn't the case. But Lori would have been a great choice. If I had known that my clips would not be aired on QVC, I probably would have gone with Lori.
Interesting. I myself did not know that either, but you did land a deal with Mark Cuban and Barbara Corcoran. Just tell us about that experience, just being on Shark Tank and having to do your pitch. It must be so nerve wracking.
Oh my gosh. It was both the most exciting and scariest day of my whole life. And I was in the room with them for 50 minutes. And oh my gosh, I was so nervous. At one point, Lori asked me a question and I couldn't answer. I said, hold on a second, Lori. And luckily, I hit a bottle of water off stage and I just left the stage and grabbed that water and took a swig because I literally had no saliva left. I was so nervous. And everyone in the studio was laughing because you're not allowed to leave the stage. I was shocked it didn't make it to air because it was obviously a very funny moment at the time, but I couldn't have continued without getting some water. I was seriously that nervous. When I first went in, I had to go up to the stage and there was an X on the floor to show me where to stop. And someone said, hey, Kim, say hi to Kevin. So I looked up and it was Robert in front of me. And I said, hi, Kevin, because I was just so out of it. And Robert was so offended. He said, I'm not Kevin. No, I said, oh no, I know who you are, Robert. I said, congratulations on your new babies or whatever. But he honestly held a grudge for, I'd say, the good first 20 minutes of our interactions.
Well, they certainly are personalities on that show. There's no doubt
They
about that.
sure are. Who would guess that Robert would be so offended that I called him by the wrong name?
Well, it did beef up your sales, did it not? I understand that your sales really went kind of through the roof.
Absolutely. It was amazing. It was basically an overnight sensation. That weekend, I think I sold about $300,000 worth of click and carries on Amazon alone. And at the time, it was only maybe $10. So it was a really amazing boost to my sales. And actually, every time it's on CNBC on a rerun, I'll always get a nice little jump in sales on Amazon or on my personal website.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, of course, a lot of deals made on Shark Tank actually don't follow through. What happened to your package?
Mine actually didn't follow through. I wasn't allowed to say anything right away. And mine is a unique situation. As you mentioned earlier, I hold the record for the most attempts ever to get on the show. And I was shocked when I didn't make it to air. In fact, the executive producer called me personally, and I didn't realize it was Clay Newbill. He's the executive producer. When he told me I didn't make it to air, I was just devastated. And I asked a million questions. I said, but why? I don't understand. He ended up getting a little bit mad at me. And I said, I'm sorry, who am I speaking to? And he said, it's Clay. I said, oh my gosh, Clay, I'm so sorry. And I backtracked and I said, listen, this was the best experience of my life. It was a dream come true. It's been a long time dream. Thank you for this opportunity. And then fast forward a couple of months, I get a call from Cambria. So it was Google numbers. He wasn't actually in Cambria, but I didn't answer because I didn't know anyone who lived in Cambria, California. But I listened to the message and I could tell that he was smiling in the message. I call him right back and he said, do you remember when you asked what happens if a show is archived? I said, of course. And he said, what did I say? I said, you said an archived episode rarely comes back. I never say never, but it's never happened before. But guess what? It's happened to you. And it was because of COVID. So if you watch my season, which was season 12, episode 8, we're the only four in that whole season who are not social distancing. And back to the story about Mark and Barbara, the reason I believe my deal didn't go through is because I actually didn't make it to air the year I filmed. I made it to air about 15 months later. So I'm still the 100% owner of Click and Carry.
Oh, wow. Okay. You didn't kind of turn around and say, do you want to redo this?
I reached out to Mark recently because going into retail requires a lot of capital, and he has a lot of other shark companies who have been through the process. For example, there's this guy, Sean, who sells Dude Waves. He helps me out. And this other guy, Jacob. So I've been getting help from some of his other companies, but there's a possibility I may have to reach out to him again, depending on how many stores Walmart and Lowe's want to put us in.
You are on Walmart.com, are you not?
I am, yes. But I'm going into their actual stores, and it's been delayed about a year and a half because all of the front ends are being rebuilt at each and every Walmart across the country. So it would likely be merchandised next to reusable bags right at the front end where the checkout is located.
That's where it should be. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It'll make it an intuitive sale. So,
where the bags are.
mhm. So it's worth the wait, but boy, has it been frustrating. I wanted to be in Walmart years ago.
You sell a pink click and carry that sets aside a portion of the sales for the National Breast Cancer Coalition. And I understand you yourself have had breast cancer twice. Instead of stopping or slowing down, you have been quoted. Now I'm paraphrasing this as kind of saying that was another wake up call to pursue your passion. Is that true? You kind of turned a negative really into a positive.
It's true because when you're faced with something like that, you don't know if you're going to live or die. That makes everything else easy. That makes it easy to accomplish a goal. If you're lucky enough to live, do something with that life. That was what encouraged me to move forward.
And how are the sales going at this point without the sharks? I mean, you just mentioned Walmart, but other than that, you've been able to live on the sales?
I have for 5 years. It's been a little bit scary. It's not like I'm a multimillionaire and it costs a lot to go into stores. I'm making that pivot because I've had problems with infringement. The Chinese love to knock off US IP. So I needed to move into retail because none of those companies are allowed to bring their product into the United States. So running into retail is the natural progression and a way for me to protect my intellectual property, but that requires a lot of money. For example, this is a shipper, and this is what I created for Albertsons, Safeway, Jewel-Osco, Acme, Vons and Pavilions. Just making 250 of them was about $20,000. So it requires a lot of work and a lot of money, a lot of investment. You have to market it once it's in the stores. So a lot of gambling involved in running your own business.
But you never said no.
No. The worst that could happen is I will have to go back to work and I'll have extra income to throw into click and carry. I just will have a lot less time to sleep. So
You just talked about like a lot of different hurdles, including the Chinese. What would you say was the biggest hurdle you've had to overcome?
there are so many. So I have a recent one. The Albertson Safeway situation was a test and it was not executed properly, but I wasn't given the data to identify the problem. And there are services, for example, there is Nielsen IQ that gives you sales per store per week. And it requires 6 weeks to be recorded before you can even gather that data. And my partner and he and I didn't have time to wait 6 weeks to find out the data, to find out what's wrong with the execution. So over Thanksgiving and Christmas, we basically went to visit all of the Philadelphia stores, all of the DC stores, and called about 90 other stores throughout Chicago and Los Angeles, San Diego, Seattle, Washington. And we gathered all this information and we found that 20% of the stores threw away the shipper that I spent $20,000 on. 31% took it off the shipper and put it on a clip strip without the proper merchandising, and only 50% basically merchandised it properly on the shipper and placed it at the front. Not all of them placed it at the front, some of them put it by the pharmacy in the back, but not all of them put it at the front. But those who put it at the front, the sales were phenomenal. So we found that out and we did our research. We talked to Sean and we talked to Jacob and we found out, gosh, for those who received it and put it in the right location, they were selling 6 click and carries a week per store. So we were able to gather that information and relay that information to Albertson Safeway. So as a result, our test is extended and we plan on doing everything in our power to make this work.
My goodness, that's a lot of personal, hands-on sort of massaging, store by store, et cetera. So how would you describe your dream now for Click and Carry?
Oh boy, I would actually like to now sell a portion of my business. So I have a lump sum of money that I don't have to worry for, let's say, the next 2 or 3 years, that I know that I will have enough money to pay my mortgage and live an okay life. Also, the resources necessary to launch properly in these stores because then it's going to expand exponentially. For example, the Albertson Safeway, I started in 166 stores, but they have about 5,000. Now it's different with Tractor Supply. I went out in all 2,200 of their stores from the start. But just to have that nest egg, to know that I could sleep at night and sleep well at night and be safe for at least 2 or 3 years and do this properly would be lovely. It would calm my psyche. So I'm looking for the right partner right now. I'm willing to sell a portion of my business at this time. And it's kind of a safe bet. And it's a safe bet since I'm already in the retailers. That's the hard part.
Is your product manufactured in China?
It is. It's manufactured in China. I'm actually trying to manufacture here in the United States, in particular for Walmart. And I'm having a little bit of difficulty because my factory is not sending my mold to me. It's a really well made mold. In fact, the 3 different factories in the United States that I worked with were really shocked at how well my product is made. It really is phenomenal. And I have to say, working with my factory has been wonderful. They've been great to me. And I was referred to them by the inventor of a perfect push-up who made over 10 million perfect push-ups with very little error. And I can say that my factory is phenomenal, but I really do need to make the product in the United States as well as in China. So I have to figure out a way to convince them to allow me to have a mold here. And when I do get that mold here in the United States, I'll be producing in Rhode Island.
Oh, so you already have a place. Will that up the price a bit too?
Actually, not that much. Surprisingly, no. I mean, it'll cost a lot to purchase the mold and to have it sent here, but then I won't have to worry about the new tariffs, which are basically killing a lot of small entrepreneurs like me. So I won't have to worry about paying tariffs.
But again, you just keep plugging. There's no.
There is no no. In fact, to back up to your question before, I'd say tariffs right now are the biggest obstacle because I haven't placed an order since the tariffs have been implemented because it's highway robbery. It's outrageous. And it is the American consumer that pays because if I do import now, I have to pass that along to the customers because I can't import product at a loss. I'm not more Cuban, so.
Do you have any other inventions in the works?
So I do have a perfect companion product for the click and carry. It's basically a tarp that is kind of shaped like a stop sign. And this tarp has 2 handles on each side and then 2 more that are complete opposites. And the 2 handles on each side come together so you can hold heavy items like 50-pound bag of dog food or a bale of hay like a briefcase so you don't have to crook your elbows. But the best part is there are 2 other hooks on either side, and it connects to a handle that goes diagonally over your shoulder. So if your arm hurts and you need to take a break, you can actually just wear your bale of hay or your 50-pound bag of dog food that one normally carries like this. You'll be able to wear it or carry it like a briefcase. And you could easily do that on each side. So even someone small like me, I'm 5'3", I would easily be able to carry 25-pound bags of dog or cat food on each side by carrying it like a briefcase.
Yeah, I have a dog. I know exactly what you're talking about. I also have a partner who can carry it, but
Good for lucky you.
but I have done it myself, and I could use some help with a handle or a bag or whatever your next invention is. What do you think are the biggest lessons that you've learned that you'd like to pass on to somebody such as yourself who might be inventing something or have some creative idea?
I would have to say, don't listen to the naysayers. So many people are going to tell you, oh, that's silly. No one would buy that. No one needs something like that. And if you believe in yourself and you believe in your product, you need to go for it. Just do not listen to the naysayers. That would be point number one. And point number two, and I touched on it earlier, there are so many amazing resources out there. SBDCs, Small Business Association, Patent and Trademark Resource Centers, colleges. So, for example, at Emerson, they did pilot programs where the marketing students would pick a company and help them with marketing. Well, guess what? That gives me a lot of free information on how to promote my product. MBA programs. I lived across from UCLA. I live in Brentwood. UCLA's in Westwood, and the Anderson School is there. So there are many times where I try to get my product in front of the students in the MBA program so they can do all the hard work for me. So there's so many amazing resources out there.
That's terrific. Do you think you'll reach out to the sharks again with your new invention?
I do. Yes, I really do. I do.
Maybe you'll break your own record. All right. Well, anything else? Any other parting remarks you'd like to make besides buy my product?
Yes, well, I'm still in that test for Albertsons, Safeway, Vaughn's Pavilions, Joel Osco, and Acme. So if any of your viewers are out in those areas and you happen to see Click and Carry in the stores, and remember, they're not all on the shipper, some are on clip strips throughout the store, please buy one and make sure you evenly distribute the weight because it will magically sit over your shoulder unassisted by your hand, and it feels like half the weight. You're going to love it.
Now, there are some other sort of gadgets that are similar. You have some competition out there,
I do.
but yours you believe is superior.
It is because mine is the only invention on the market that is truly hands-free. The wearing of the product over the shoulder allows one to be truly hands-free. And when it's carried in your hand, the best part is it hangs at hand level, whereas the competitors all hang about 3 inches below. And if you're short like me, your bags are going to be dragging on the ground. So it's superior in many ways. Plus, the others can't be used as a ski boot tote, for dry cleaning, for paint cans and construction pails. So there are a lot of fun uses for the Click and Carry. And then none of them can be used as a stand for your phone or iPad, only Click and Carry.
That's true. All right. Well, thank you very, very much for being with us, Kim, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Lisa. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you selecting me to be on your show. It's an honor.
Absolutely. And I did order a Click and Carry, and I hope to get it soon and use it. For more on Kim and her invention, visit clickandcarry.com. You can also find this item, as Kim mentioned, on Amazon, Walmart.com, QVC.com, and Kroger.com. It retails for $13.99, and it comes in a variety of colors. This podcast has been brought to you by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business and a champion for people who have big dreams and follow through. I'm your host, Lisa Champeau. Talk to you next time.